Okay, I'm starting to worry that I'm actually slowly turning into the Game Jam kid, and I'm putting 100% of the blame solely on you guys. There appears to be this increasing demand for wannabe game developers like myself, who will voluntarily sacrifice their mental health to create these fever dream video games. But the more of these I do, the more I start to wonder how many fever dream game ideas do I really have left? And it's starting to look like a real possibility that I've used up all my great ideas. Games like a dog with sword or a jumping pumpkin. And these were the S tier ideas. It's really only getting worse from here. Okay, listen, maybe it's time to take a break from game jams. Maybe, I'm over doing these week-long crunches where I just try not to throw up from stress. That's a young man's game. I'm 32 years old. I have self-respect, right? It's not like I need validation from strangers on the internet. Huh, interesting. My last Game Jam video did better than all these other videos combined. Like I was saying, I love Game Jams. I'm a big Game Jam guy. They call me the Game Jam kid, for Pete's sake. And listen, guys, next month we go to therapy, I promise. But this month, we got Godot Wild Jam number 65. Guy with job. This video has been brought to you by my Patreon. For $5 a month, it really helps support the channel and helps me mentally justify all the work it takes to do these videos. But way more than that, I also throw in all the art and all the coding files from all these game jams I've done, which is like 8 now. So if you're curious on how I did any of the things in any of my game jams, you can see it there. Or if you want to take my art and make something else cool with it, I 100% support that. I'll put a link to that down in the description, along with a link to the Discord that I finally made. Community building's new to me, but I'm trying. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. Okay, coming off the last game jam, the Wolf one, I would be lying if I didn't admit that I felt really lost on what to do going forward. I try to view game jams like an opportunity. With the limited foundational knowledge I have about Godot, mixed with the ability I have to do some pixel art, a week-long game jam feels like the perfect amount of time to learn something new and make something out of it. But the problem is, how do I know how much I can learn? In between the December and January game jams, I really went down a couple rabbit holes. I spent a few days watching 3D artists trying to figure out if I want to get into Blender, then somehow shifted gears to watching tutorials on turn-based combat, which led me to realize I've never even done grid-based movement, and honestly, it all kind of felt like a big waste of time. I think a big problem is that I wasn't actually following along with these tutorials. Instead, I was just kind of watching them like I was auditing a class. And then before I knew it, the game jam was here and the theme gets announced, Overload. There's usually no rhyme or reason for it, but some themes just don't spark some immediate brilliant idea. And for some reason, Overload was that kind of theme for me. My first thought was maybe there's some really simple turn-based combat I could make, and then narratively we can just tie it into the theme. So I wasted that whole first day trying to get a turn-based combat system working. And as it turns out, it is really hard. I am a little dumb. I even took your guys' advice and used placeholder art so that way I was more focused on the coding, but I think I realized some ideas are just going to be too big for me to do in 1 week. The first day of the game jam ends up being a total wash and I throw all of that away. But listen, okay, I'm a game jam professional. I don't need all the days. I'm just considering this hard mode. It's fine. Day 2 starts off strong. I tell my friend I'm a failure, I can't do it, and I'm quitting game jams. His response was, why don't you make a game where you put boxes on trucks? Which actually reminded me there was a summer I tried to work at FedEx. It was really horrible. I could only last a week and then I quit. So yeah, I guess we'll make the FedEx simulator. I realized I need something pretty fast. So I go into the pumpkin game and find this character that I never used. It was just a sketch, but he honestly kind of looks like he could work at FedEx. I give him a quick idle animation and walk cycle, and then I go on to work on some tiles. And immediately thought it looks just like the Wolf game. God damn it. It can't be dark. Too many dark games. I go back in to give the art a second pass, this time leaning into more of a Portal aesthetic. And I think it came out pretty well, but honestly, a big part of me was just happy not leaning on lighting tricks for every single game jam. I immediately settle on having a single screen design, which means no player camera. I draw these conveyor belts and then have them move boxes in and out of the screen. And then from here, I actually diverge off to make a new file with the sole focus to learn grid-based placement. I know that sounds kind of weird because a game jam is a prototype. Why am I making a separate one? But I actually think it helped me learn way faster. That, and now I feel way more confident. When I have something I've never quite done before, sometimes there's these lingering feelings of doubt. It's like I have one brainworm anti-fan up there, just causing stress. But listen, okay, we're good. We overcame that. And now with a fresh mind, I can move on to what I'm deeming the box nightmare. Okay, the more I learn and the more I get into game development, the more it's becoming clear to me that there are systems and games that I'm just taking for granted. A great example of this is when I see a weapon in a game, I never envision all the assets that have to exist in order for that weapon to function. It's more than just the weapon when it's equipped. All these stats and values have to carry over from when you're holding it to when it's in your inventory, if you're allowed to drop it, or maybe you can buy it from a shop. It feels like, there must be a solution for this. I do not know this solution. In my FedEx simulator game, instead of weapons, it's actually boxes. And unfortunately, my answer was just to make like a million different scenes. There's a file for when the box is on the ground, a different one for when you're holding it, one for when you're about to place it, and then one when it's finally on the truck. Oh, but that's just one type of box. Now we got like the big box and the long box. Special attributes like whether or not the box is open or if it needs to be scanned. If there's an iPhone in the box, it has to mysteriously go missing. I only worked at FedEx for like 2 days, but I'm pretty sure that was the rule. And now, before I knew it, the system that I thought I'd get done in an afternoon is taking me over 2 days. And I'm starting to worry because when you work on a system-heavy game, there's no way to experience the gameplay until the loop is complete. So I take a step away from boxes. I've seen enough of them for one lifetime anyway. Instead, now, focusing on those behind the scene elements that's gonna make the game actually be a game. I add the ability to send a truck, which earns you money for each box in it, which, by the way, I would have worked so much harder if that was the case. I tie the money into a persistent HUD that's gonna stay level to level, add a little timer to the rounds, and add this little terminal guy who's just constantly disappointed in you. I'm starting to get a closer idea of what it means to play around, but I'm realizing that I need more for it to be fun. And at the time I'm thinking, I really want to do these Among Us style mini games. It actually feels like a great combination of elements. You have these boxes coming down the conveyor belt, and then this timer going off in the background. Then in the middle of the chaos, you have to pause all that to do these little side quests. Behind the scenes, I already have the attributes for boxes that are open or need to be scanned. I would love to have more, but this is a game jam. I did waste a whole day doing whatever the hell this was. I quickly throw together this little tape mini game. I don't mean to brag, but you know, kind of nailed the art in this packaging tape. Probably, honestly, the best thing I've drawn in months. I also put together the scanner, and one lucky thing I really got right here is that I made it work passively. You just bring a box to it that needs to be scanned, and it does it for you. It brings up a loading bar, but it allows you to walk away and do other things in the meantime. Certain mechanics and game jams sort of feel like a home run right away, and this was one of them. I've constructed a game where time is such a valuable resource that giving you the ability to multitask felt incredible. I really wish I did more of this, but with time running out, there's still two incredibly important things I have to add to the game. The first one is that more than any other game jam I've done, this one needs a tutorial. The game is so time sensitive. If you jump in and get a game over screen because you don't know what to do, I'm gonna lose you. I put together this really short hiring intro with the sole purpose of just figuring out whether or not the player wants a tutorial. Then the tutorial itself is just a bunch of scripted events. It ranks pretty high on the boring things to do category, in my opinion, just beating out HUD design and dialogue systems. The other important aspect that I need to add to the game is what happens when a round ends. And honestly, this pains me so much because I had so many ideas I wanted to do with such high expectations for this part of the game. From the beginning of the FedEx idea, I wanted so badly to lean into some life sim elements. I had my heart set on a lunch break scene where the player would go in and decide some way to spend their money to change the next round. Ideas like buying an energy drink to move faster, maybe skipping your lunch to get more time in the round, or even confronting your boss about increasing your pay rate. But as this part of the loop is getting pushed back and back, I'm now on the final day and it's becoming clear to me that it's gonna have to get cut. And I'm not super happy with what we settle on. Instead, it's just a black screen giving you some stats and sort of telling you where you're at. But the important part is that this completes the loop. Now I finally get to get in there and test the game, even though I only have 4 or 5 hours left. And while it's fun, I'm starting to worry it might be a little repetitive, so as a last-ditch effort, I pieced together 3 different level layouts and have the game shuffle these around as it loads new levels. And in order to get this done, I make the conscious effort to just give up on audio, which I haven't done since the first game jam. I know it'll make it score less, not that I care too much about that, but in my heart, it'll make it a better game. Actually, you know what? Lore-wise, you can never wear headphones when you worked at FedEx, so I should probably get bonus points for getting that right. But even without audio, it's still a struggle to get to the finish line. This is a first for me. I get it uploaded and it's actually broken. So I start texting work, telling them I'm gonna be running 15 minutes late, which of course turns into 30 minutes, and my mental totally deteriorating as I worry this whole week's gonna be for nothing. I do manage to get it uploaded and I head off to work, but I am kind of surprised at the first comments that start coming in. You know, a big reason why doing these game jams can be so hard is that there's always so much to learn. And learning's not easy. My brain's full of cheat codes and speedrun strats. But luckily, there's help out there, like the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is a fun and super engaging way to tackle some of the more technical aspects of game development. So much of game dev is math, and no one really tells you this till you get stuck on an issue. And then I end up over here copying code from strangers on the internet with no idea of the underlining juices that make it work. And yes, game juices is a technical term. It refers to all the math classes I didn't pay attention to in college. But that's where Brilliant comes in. Brilliant has thousands of lessons on math, computer science, and data science, with the best part for me being that it's all interactable. I personally find that it's easy for me to spiral down game dev tutorials without actually retaining any of that knowledge because I'm not following along. But with Brilliant, every lesson is immediately interactable, super visual, and it ramps up gradually so my little brain can follow it. If you head to brilliant.org/MZ, you can get started for free for 30 days, with the first 200 users getting 20% off the annual plan. That's brilliant.org/MZ. All right, let's get back to the video. So with the game uploaded and the bugs supposedly fixed, I get to work late, I'm glued to my phone, just refreshing for comments. I really am the model employee. But to my surprise, as the early comments start coming in, about half of them are experiencing the same game-breaking bug. I guess this is gonna happen from time to time, but the worst feeling is just knowing I'm stuck at work and I can't change it. I do find a fix and manage to get a patch uploaded in a couple of days, but I can't help but not kick myself for not doing more testing. Although, with bugs aside, the more important question is, how do I actually feel about the game? And the answer is, it's probably more positive than it really has any right being, especially given the bumpy development week, the lack of audio, with such a short playtest period. One positive element here that impacts the game more than I thought it would was actually using money instead of some kind of high score system. In my mind, it sort of grounds the number, it makes it feel more tangible and have more meaning. Obviously, the intent was to let you spend it, and that absolutely would have brought it home. But even without that, there's just certain baggage we put on the idea of money, and it's interesting how a game can inherit that. And piggybacking off of that, very late in development, I made it so when you do a task, you're rewarded a very small amount of money, because I noticed the incentives were to always just pick a box that didn't need a task. The money amount is actually really small, it's almost insignificant. second, but these positive incentives can kind of trick the mind of the player. Every time I do one of these game jams, I try to push myself to learn something new, and for this one, it absolutely is this grid-based placement mechanic. I'm really happy with it. It feels like something I could recreate and use in a different project. Just overall, it's nice to learn new things. As for the negatives, I feel like most things I don't like or want to change about the game are pretty small, and they also match up to the constructive criticism I got from people who played my game. Things like having menus that auto-close or being able to click on boxes instead of pressing E to pick them up. They're changes faster to make than they are for me to even mention here. I will say that the biggest negative that I have, and I feel this way about a lot of game jams, especially when they're going well, is that I just wish I had more time. It's truly the trade-off of every game jam. The nature of the deadline makes you work harder and sort of solves any decision paralysis, but with the trade-off being that it's a deadline, there's certain things that I just personally can't do. They're inherently good at making you develop your foundational layout for games, but now that I've made a couple foundations and some of them I like, it'd be kind of nice to work with them. I joked about it in the beginning of this video, but I do think it's time to consider taking a step away from these month-long game jams. And behind the scenes in this YouTube community, there is kind of a big division between what's a real game dev or a YouTube game dev. I sort of make games for people that want to make them, and not necessarily want to play them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a YouTube game dev, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I want to eventually get something on Steam. They're actually super tough decisions, and it's amplified by the fact that game dev takes so long to get things done. When I did music, I might waste a week working on a song, but in game dev, that week is like 3 or 4 months. Or if I'm being honest, maybe even a year. Where my head's at right now, I at least want to take off the next one, and try to figure out whether or not Far Gone Frontier should be my main project, or instead, maybe expanding one of these old game jams. A few of you even reached out to me saying you were inspired to do the Godot Wild Jam because of watching one of my videos, and that's probably one of the best feelings in the world. And even if I'm not there for the next one, I really hope you guys keep going. To the shock of no one, I'm still a pretty big game jam supporter. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you again to my Patreons. So until next time, guys, I'll see you later.